Alright, hopefully the audio is going to be okay on this. I'm at Fort Bridger State Historic Site here in Fort Bridger. It's kind of down the highway from Evanston, and Mountain View and Lyman are just over here. If any of you have had classes from Mrs. Littlejohn or Mr. Littlejohn, they live just like a mile down the road here. So it's a really pretty place at the base of the Uinta Mountains. And Fort Bridger was one of those forts, old-time forts, that was built to help people traveling through the area on their way, headed usually west. So we'll explore what they have to explore here and see some cool things, hopefully. Kind of a cool statue. Jim Bridger, the mountain man. Let's see what this monument is over here. Like this monument was erected in 1914. So that monument there's been here quite a while. All right, let's go explore the fort. Here's kind of a cool sign that tells you the things you can do while you're here. So if you ever come, these are some of the things you can look forward to. Or maybe some of you have already been here and seen these things. I don't know if any of them are open right now. We'll have to see. Looks like they have a Mountain Man rendezvous on every Labor Day. That'd be kind of cool. So it looks like this is what remains of Fort Bridger, I think. Remember to press pause on these and you can read it, and then you can continue on. They have it in Braille here too for the blind. This is how blind people read. They just move their hands across the dots. I'm guessing it's left to right. I don't know if it's right to left. Same thing on this one. Go ahead and press pause. The fort itself, or what's left of it, and some of the rebuilt stuff. I'll take you over to different spots here. So you can see the old fort there. Looks like it was built out of stacked stone. And they've put kind of a modern shingle roof on it. Looks like a pretty simple stone stacking for the walls, and some wood down there in the foundation I can see. So might get rained on today. There's another building out behind it, and then a bunch of wood structures back there. This tells us what these are. Go ahead and press pause and read that. I'm going slow because I'm on crutches. Because I injured my foot doing a long race last weekend. So trying to hobble around this fort on crutches. Go ahead and press pause and read that. And then this says this was the first Wyoming schoolhouse. In 1860, Judge William Carter erected this schoolhouse for the education of his 4 daughters, 2 sons, and other children of the fort. Competent instructors from the East were employed, and the students of this school were permitted to enter Eastern colleges without further preparation. Thus, the way was paved for future education in Wyoming. Kind of interesting. They put this up in 1939, but I don't know if this is the actual school building or not. Let's go see what it says. Schoolhouse, yep. Look at that. How'd you like to go to school here? Looks like there's a few little desks in there. You can see that. The teacher's desk. So they would have brought a teacher in the old days. They would have given them a place to live and room and board, food and everything. Here's the milk house. So here's these little structures next to the fort. What's this other one say? This is the wash house. Oh, my foot. Trying to walk using one crutch. It's not working out too well. And back here they have some cool stuff as well. So the way I hurt my foot is I had a 100-mile race last weekend from Logan, Utah through the mountains to Bear Lake, Idaho. And at mile 55 at 2 in the morning, my left ankle swelled up because it decided it didn't like running that far. I was going to quit, but my wife and brother and my dad and my friend convinced me to keep going. So I just went from one aid station to the next on a foot that got worse and worse. And now it's when I actually finished the race, 100 miles, and then my leg swelled up so bad I wasn't able to walk for about 3 days, 4 days. But yesterday I was able to get around on crutches, and today I thought I'd come down here and do this field trip at Fort Bridger. My son's running a cross-country meet, and so I thought, well, I'll go make a field trip and watch him run. Hopefully my leg doesn't get mad at me. I'm leaning on these crutches. I'm wearing a slipper because I can't fit my swollen foot in a shoe. You can press pause and read that. And they've got some, look at that, Pony Express stable. 1860 to 1861. There's a tack room, horse tack. There's a carriage house. And that says that's the chicken coop. And that says that is the ice house right there. So that's where they kept their ice. Probably thick walls and maybe even down into the ground. And back in the day they didn't have freezers, and so during the winter they'd cut blocks of ice and they'd stick it down in there, and if they got it down underground and put hay and other insulating stuff on it, it could last for months and months, as I understand it. So kind of cool. You can see those old walls back in there, built out of stone. There you go. All right, I think I might shut this off to hobble that way, so you don't have to wait for me to hobble over there on my crutches. So I think that's kind of amazing that W.A. Carter's freight wagon they were able to keep it. I mean, that's from 160 years ago. So it's amazing that they were able to hold on to that somehow. You can see how it was built back in here. So the 1860s or 1870s freight wagon. It's kind of narrow back there. It looks like it's about 2 or 3 feet wide. You can see that back gate slides up or down. You can see these wheels in here. They had to grease or lube those wheels so that the wood and the metal could roll and slide together as the wheel went down the road. These big iron bands where you're protected the wood tire, and that wood would flex a little bit, so it'd kind of give a little bit of flex when you hit bumps and so forth. But it was still tough to keep those together. Those wheels were constantly breaking and having to be repaired, and if it had that iron band, finding a blacksmith who could fix it is kind of a pain. You can see underneath what it looks like back in there. On this side as well. This front wheel is considerably bigger. It's pretty cool. And you can see the bows up on top that supported probably a canvas top to protect everything inside from the weather and maybe keep the freight driver out of the sun. It's a pretty cool old wagon. Alright. It's beautiful around here. It's surrounded by farmland and it's really pretty. The Uinta Mountains are right there. A wilderness area that is mostly in Utah. So I told you Carter's wagon is right there, and there's the White House structures, so forth. So you can press pause and read that. I don't know if this is an old well that they have here or what, but alright, let's go see what else we got. Looks like the runners are starting to show up from around Wyoming. Let's see where this bus is coming from. Like it says Uinta County. Some locals. So this is the officers' quarters. See the little sign there. And a log home. A lot of restoration been done on this, you can tell, but it has those cool old chimneys. I'll let you press pause and read this. And then a lot of space in between the buildings here. You can see there's some cross-country kids showing up to run. There's buildings over there and buildings there, buildings behind me. So. Let's see what this sign says. Oh, I guess this is where they had all the officers' quarters. There's a big fancy house over there. That was probably like the commanding officer's house. back there. You can see back in the trees there. All right, let's go see what else we can find. Doesn't look like any of the buildings are open right now. Maybe they closed earlier or only open in the summer, not sure. This is the commanding officer's quarters. You can press pause and read that. And this is that house I was showing you from a distance just now. You can see the sign there.
Well, we might be checking that report, so I'm gonna go.
Okay. I'll see you in a bit. You can press pause and read this. And you can see this old house. I don't think they let us in it. Maybe I can film inside the window a little bit. Oh! Foot. They got some old furniture in there and stuff. Okay, cool. I'm assuming they give tours if you get here during certain times. And it looks like there's another officer's house there. Pretty place to be. I don't know if all these trees were here back then. You can see all this cool wood design. These old sliding windows slide down or up during the summers to get some air. You can see all that old furniture in there. And the shutters back then were actually used. You'd close them up to protect the windows from hail or high winds or whatnot. Here next to the officers' quarters, there's the Carter family cemetery plot. Some old tombs. Some really old sandstone tombs. The rest look like granite or marble. I don't know if I can zoom in enough that you can read this or not. I don't know if you can see that or not. That's as far as I can zoom. Maybe if I scoot around. Yeah, so there's William A. Carter's tomb or headstone. And then let's see if I can zoom in on this any better. I don't know if you can pause that and read it or not. I can't even read it from where I'm standing, so it's kind of silly that they don't have it on the other side, unless it's carved on both sides. Let's see what they have. Doesn't look like it's carved. Nope. So, it's a pretty place here, though. Old Fort Bridger. Here's the commissary and the old guardhouse. They have a replica Jim Bridger's trading post. It's not the original that was rebuilt. It's down there. I don't think I'm gonna go down there. It's kind of a long way to crutch down there, and my foot's starting to hurt. So you can press pause and read this. And then you can press pause and read this. And then that's the museum right there. So you can press pause and read that. There's old buildings here. Here's, you can press pause and read that. And then press pause and read that. Beautiful Wyoming. It's a pretty day. So they do have a museum, but it's only open Friday through Sunday. And as luck would have it, today is Thursday, so we can't get in. So that's most of the grounds. They have a few other buildings and sites that you can look at. I'm assuming if you come on the weekend or days, if you look up on the internet with your parents, you can find out when they give tours, because I'm assuming they let you go inside the buildings, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that's Fort Bridger. Kind of interesting. It's kind of a cool little place. It's just off of I-80. It goes from Evanston over to Laramie, and we're just maybe 30 minutes from Evanston, I think. So if you ever cut off of I-80 and drop down about a mile or two, Fort Bridger sits right here. So, and Mrs. Littlejohn and Mr. Littlejohn live just outside of Fort Bridger, right against it, out in the farm country right there. So, kind of cool. All right. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. Just dropped one of my crutches. So just outside of Mountain View, Wyoming here is this herd of buffalo. Looks like it's a private herd just on some small farmland. They probably raise them for meat, sales, and so forth. So kind of interesting.